Alright, good afternoon. There's an old kit from Revell of the F-89 J Scorpion. Build one of two versions. This is their Birds of Prey series, and it is in 1/48 scale. What else do we got on the box here? Let's see, on the sides. Whoops. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. We have some pictures of the finished model. Judging by these pictures, it looks like it's got a pretty detailed cockpit. Plenty of decals. What else can we see? This is a really big box, by the way. There's a nice picture of the finished model on the side. Oops. Same with this side. And we got a blurb here in English. An unassembled plastic model kit. Paint and cement not included are needed to complete model as shown. 1/48 scale. Length 13.5 inches. Pictorial instruction sheet provides assembly instructions in English for ages 10 to adults. Alright. Well, I think next we'll take a look and see what's inside the box. Okay. Alright. Inside the instructions is the decal sheet. There's a little bit of yellowing, but it doesn't look too severe. So these decals will hopefully be usable. And then the instructions themselves are a large fold-out instruction sheet, and it goes all the way around to the back side to step 34 is the last step. And we have on the very last pages here also, we have the color callouts and where the decals go. That's what it looks like. The very first page gives you the kit number of 4548, 1/48 scale. They give you a little chart here with the colors you're going to use. The F-89 Scorpion right here. The only difference I see between it and the J Scorpion is that the D looks like it carries some drop tanks on the wings, whereas the J has missiles and looks like a couple of bombs. There's a date on top here, a copyright 1990. And let's see what they say here. I'm looking to see if they give you in this history of when this thing first came out. It says it established aviation history on July 19th, 1957, when a test aircraft launched a nuclear-tipped MB-1 Genie rocket. All right. Instructions look pretty typical for an older Revell kit. Exploded views of where the parts are going to go. And looks like the first thing you put together is the fuselage. That's interesting. Then you work on the pilot seat and the cockpit. And I'm assuming at some point we're going to be sticking that cockpit inside the airplane. Oh yes, here we are. Starting in step 6, the cockpit is loaded into the fuselage from underneath. Alright, that's kind of interesting. It's going to be interesting to build this old kit. It looks fairly simple. I don't see anything really complicated about it. Okay, so let's take a look at the parts. The first sprue that's laying in the top of the box has the right half of the fuselage and a couple of the wings. And the wings come in halves. Stamped on the back here, copyright Revell 1990, all rights reserved, made in the USA. Okay. And looking at these parts, there's raised panel lines together with recessed panel lines for the flaps and ailerons. There's a lot of rivet detail. I do not see a huge amount of flash. There's a little bit of flash right here on the tail right there. And there's a little bit on the wing, but not much. Very, very little. The next sprue is a rather large one. Here's the drop tanks or the wingtip tanks, I'm not sure. We also have the missiles. Here's an instrument panel. Landing gear parts. Here are some wheels. Part of a bomb or missile. And very minimum of flash on this. There is a little bit, but nothing really bad. Okay. Okay, this next sprue, I see right here a couple of crew figures, engine parts, here's the cockpit tub. Lots of instruments built into it, or molded into it. More drop tanks, I'm thinking. These are the ends of the missile pods. Here are the two bottom halves of the wings with the wheel bays. Also on this sprue is, I'm not sure what this is, the tip of one of the wings or stabilizers, rear stabilizers, not sure. And then laying loose in the bottom of the box, here's the rear stabilizer. The other half the fuselage, a couple of engine cans, and in this plastic bag we have the clear parts. You see the canopy, I see some light covers, bomb halves, bomb pylons. Looks like a pilot seat laying in there. So these parts were laying in the box. I just put them in this plastic bag. Didn't want them to get lost. Okay. Well, there you have it. And when I come back, we'll get started. Step one is putting the two halves of the fuselage together and then putting the nose on the airplane. So I'm going to dry fit this. See how it all works. That looks good. This looks good. All right. It fits together pretty well. So I'll just look it over here. I think I'll put another piece of tape here in the nose section. There we are. I don't see any major fitting problems. Doesn't look warped. I think we're ready to start putting some glue on it. Okay. Two halves of the fuselage are together now. And for the most part it went together okay. There is a little misalignment, especially towards the tail here. It's just a little molding difference between the two halves. It's very, very, very slight, but you can see it. But it isn't anything that's a deal breaker, because I've got it glued together just fine, and 90% of it is lined up great. There's no bad gaps, just a little bit of a step, you might say, in between the two halves of the plastic in a couple of places. Right here in the back, and right here is the worst, but it's not that bad. The nose of the plane lined up fairly well. So did the spine of the fuselage right here. So what it boils down to is I'll just do a little bit of sanding on these seams to get them totally level with each other. Now, since this has the raised panel lines, it's going to be interesting how this comes out. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to let this fuselage that I just glued together, I'm going to let it sit overnight like this, and I'm going to start building the pilot seat and the cockpit, and get that all done and painted up. And because once I get that done, it will get put into the fuselage. And before we can put anything into the fuselage, we'll come back to the fuselage and sand all these seams. But that's going to wait till tomorrow or the next day. So let's get started on building the pilot seat here. There's two seats, the pilot and the co-pilot, or the navigator, or the radio man, or whatever he is, since this is a two-seater aircraft. And two of everything in this cockpit. Two instrument panels, two sticks, two seats, etc. Gonna get all the parts that I need for this, and we'll start putting it together. Okay, and so here I am through step 5. Got the cockpit all done. Came out all right, I guess. It's all totally out of the box. Just painted it, did some dry brushing, that sort of thing. And that's going to get inserted into the fuselage next. All right. And the fuselage is all done. I did a bunch of sanding and used a little sprue goo on the seams, sanded it all smooth. I'm going to go through and lightly sand all the rivets that are all over this thing. They're just way out of scale and too big. So I'm going to do that. And then I will insert this. Cockpit's going to get inserted inside the fuselage. That's what they show you to do anyway. It's going to be interesting how that's going to work, but that's what it does. It's supposed to just slip in there somehow. I think kind of like that. Something like that. Okay. Anyway, First things first, we're going to do a little light sanding on all these raised rivet details and stuff. Just kind of knock them back a bit.